Hello and welcome to today's webinar, One Partner, One Solution, More Than a Slogan, a Way of Life, presented by our friends over at Transfinder. I'm Wes Platt, Executive Editor for School Bus Fleet, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. I encourage you all to ask questions during the webinar at any point. We'll try to address them. However, if we don't get to yours during the webinar, don't worry. You'll be contacted by email with a response after the event. I'm happy to be joined by our panelists today and the Transfinder team, Rick DeRico and Zach Morin. Thank you all for being here. And Rick, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Wes. Thanks so much for our friends over there at School Bus Fleet. We really appreciate you. You guys do a great job of covering our industry. This is a really important webinar. It's something that's been bubbling up for a while now. One partner, one solution, as Wes just said. You know, these people come up with catchy slogans, but this is much more than that. We're just thankful that we can share a little bit. We're going to have some actual panelists who are in the thick of things, boots on the ground, who are going to share their stories as well. You know, people have used expressions like all in one. We used to shun that terminology at Transfinder because, we didn't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. We were masters of routing. But there comes a time when, that's where the customer is, that's where the client is. And in recent years, we started hearing more and more from our clients and future clients about their lives and what they were looking for. And over and over again, we kept hearing that they wanted to work with one vendor. They didn't want to have multiple sources to go to solve their issues. And when they needed attention, they didn't want to figure out who the right person was. So we began focusing on turning our expertise to other areas that are all aligned with routing, of course, areas such as parent apps, driver apps, and even hardware. So we are now really, truly are that one partner, one solution. So we brought on some clients, and I'll introduce them momentarily, and they're going to share their stories. And we would, as Wes said, we'd love for you to ask questions. There's a spot for you to do that. We'll address as many as we can live. Zach is an expert here, and he'll be answering some of those questions. I can answer some questions. Some of our panelists may answer some of those questions. If you have a question for a specific panelist, feel free to ask that as well. And we'll also try to answer it in the chat as well. Before we get to our panelist, I'd like to introduce Transfinder's Sales Enablement Manager, Zach Morin. He's in another time zone. I'm in New York. He's in Texas. I think we have like multiple time zones. West, I think you're West Coast, if I'm not mistaken. So we have people all over. We have Anchorage, Alaska. So we have a lot of time zones here. But Zach's going to give us a piece of it, really visualizing exactly what one partner, one solution really looks like. Zach, great to have you.
Absolutely. Good to be on. So, I think more than a slogan's a good way to put it, right? Step one was obviously having the right solution for our clients, right? And being in business for 35 years, we've heard from our clients what they're looking for. And we really think about it as far as addressing all of the stakeholders at your district, right? Routing software is something you use in transportation. It's key, it's fundamental, but there's so many phone calls coming in all the time from your district staff, from your parents, from your drivers. We were really looking at how can we create tools that address each of those stakeholders. And you see it now with our platform that's bringing you tools for route optimization, but we're also bringing tools like driver navigation with turn-by-turn tablets, ridership tracking. So as students board and deboard the bus, they can swipe right on, and that information is being tracked in real time. A parent application, so mom can see, when's the bus supposed to get here? Did my student get on this afternoon? See all that information kind of in one place, and tying in the other important pieces within transportation for field trips, fleet maintenance, all of that, and bringing it really in-house so that you're working with one vendor. There's so many reasons as important, like Rick said, that we kind of brought that under one umbrella. In the past, we've tried, connecting all of the different pieces. And I know probably a lot of people listening right now are going through that headache of trying to make different pieces work where they have one tool here, another tool there. And we see a lot of the same issues coming up, right? There's managing multiple systems. They're double entering the same kind of information. If a driver calls out sick, I've got to update this system, but I've got to update this. And maybe I've got it on a spreadsheet too. There's a lot of double work that's happening. There's a lot of delays that happen as well, right? We see that all the time where I've made a change to my route, but when's my parent going to see that, or my driver, or a school administrator? it's really got to be instantaneous, right? Otherwise, the communication starts to break down. So making that information seamless and instantaneous. And then, of course, the final part leads into, being that partner, right? It's the support side. When you're working with multiple vendors, you see a lot of finger pointing, right? When everything's under one house, there's one company that you're working with. So communication should be there. If there's a breakdown, you know who to call, you know who to work with. And that leads to a point that's really important, is offering a lot of these solutions is a good step. And we see a lot of companies today that are offering a full suite of products, from the navigation to transportation to parent apps. But another key part of this whole thing is, how do you make them work, right? Having a partner that's going to work with you as far as making sure that the rollout is seamless. And we've seen this as we've rolled this out with really big districts and small districts across the country. There's a lot of unique challenges bringing this technology in. And our panel today is amazing. I'm sure they're going to go into the detail of telling you how technology has helped them, but I'm sure they're going to share some pieces as far as what are the challenges with bringing new technology in. And we've seen that, getting drivers to adopt the technology. When you have older bus drivers, how interested are they in picking up a tablet and logging in every morning? Building parent adoption, right? This has been a big challenge for parent apps in the past, as far as, great, you can have an app that does everything in the world, but if 20 or 30% of my community is logged in and using it, how much is that really benefiting or moving the chains for us, right? So we as a company have really looked at, how can we be a good partner to help really make this technology successful? How can we take a parent app and roll it out not to 20 or 30%, but get 80% adoption for your community, so that your parents really know where to go to find that information? How do we, build that adoption with your drivers by putting tools into the tablet that's going to make their day-to-day life better, so they're encouraged to actually pick it up and want to log in and use that technology? For us, that's been the biggest piece about making our technology successful. You see it all across the board, with our parent app, the resources that we give districts to roll it out, make sure that it's successful, make sure that the community knows that it's coming. So, just a sample is, we're giving you email content, we're giving you web page content, mailers, PR resources to talk with your local news and press. So we really want to be there with you to kind of roll out this technology to your community when you're trying to get parents to log into that parent app. It's the same thing with, like Rick said, the hardware, the tablets, and the software on the buses, making sure that, one, this is easy to use, it's reliable, you know that if you're going to have a breakdown, you've got replacements coming, or that we're using the sturdiest equipment so it's not breaking on you every day. But also just that the technology is intuitive, that a bus driver can actually pick up a tablet and say, oh, I can figure out how to log in and run my route today, or how to clock in and out, or how to submit a digital form that I used to have to fill out on paper, right? So making all of that really seamless, bringing it in-house. For us, that's the big picture of what it means to, have one partner with it. And like I said, I'm really excited to hear from some of our clients today, because they're the ones actually using it. As much as Rick and I could talk about how we've got great products, how they're going to change your life, actually hearing from people using it can really help you understand where does this come into play. But, we do say it all the time, is that technology is not a one-stop fix, right? You need to have solutions that work, a vendor that's going to be there to support you. But, bringing new technology in does definitely mean that there's going to be a part on the district side, right? To support this, to build that adoption, to push their drivers to use this every day. And so I'm excited to hear kind of from our panel a little bit as they talk through what have the challenge been, but also what have the pieces been that have been really successful for us. Rick, I think that's what I have as far as my preamble. From there, I'd love to kind of bring our panel in and talk with them a little bit more.
That's great. Thanks so much, Zach. Really appreciate it. We already got a question coming in. I was going to ask people what zip code they're in, or what city or state they're in. As I introduce our webinar panelists, I think the one that's coming the furthest away virtually is Heather Philp out of Anchorage Public Schools. You're not going to see Heather, but you will hear Heather. Heather, how are you? Can you hear me, Heather? All right, I'm going to move on, and hopefully we'll hear Heather soon. Peter Buckles with Grand Ledge Public Schools in Michigan. Peter, you can come on screen. We got Matthew Schultz from Hilton Central School District in New York. and Randy Williams from Wilson School District in Pennsylvania. How are you guys?
Good.
Thank you.
Good. So, and Heather, can you hear me now? Okay, so hopefully we'll get Heather on. Manny, if you could see if you can work that, see what's going on back there, that'd be great. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to ask. I'll ask Pete first, and we'll just work around the room here. If you guys tell me a little bit about your career path to where you got to where you are today here, and a little bit about your district. So how many students you're transporting? Maybe if you have how many bus routes you have, just something that gives us a sense of where you're coming from. So Pete, you want to kick it off for us?
Good afternoon. I'm from Grand Ledge Public Schools. That's in Grand Ledge, Michigan, which if you're familiar with the state, we're kind of in the center of the Michigan. Our routes, we have 32 routes, and we transport about 3,000 students. Our whole district has just over 5,000, so not everybody rides a bus. A lot of our district is out in the rural area. We actually service 3 counties. Some of them are very densely populated, and some are you drive for miles and pick up one kid. So it's a very variable environment. We've been using technology on our buses for quite a few years now. For over 10 years, we've been using GPS, and we've slowly worked up to where we're using different GPS providers, tablet providers, ridership, and all that. And we're just recently looking to come on board with the solution from Transfinder, which is we're in a testing process right now, and I like how they put everything together. I think that's what this webinar is about. So I really see potential right there. So that's what I got.
Great, thanks so much, Matthew.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm the transportation director in Hilton, New York, at our school district here, northwest suburb of Rochester, right on Lake Ontario. Similar to Pete, we have some rural areas. We have a village, which is pretty tight. It's not urban, but it's tight. And we have some suburban areas as well with like new housing tracts and stuff. We have about 4,500 kids, of which we transport about maybe 3,800. And so similarly, we don't transport everybody. We have walking zones and things like that. We have about 80 routes, about 100 bus drivers, but that includes all of our sub drivers and retirees that still help us out, including our office staff. I serve as a bus driver sometimes due to driver shortages, as well as our mechanics. And we have 5 schools on our campus or within our district here. We don't have county school districts in New York State. And we transport to 33 schools. Some of those are private parochial schools. Other schools are special ed placement, things along those lines. I've been in Hilton for 2 years. I was in a neighboring district for about 7 or 8 prior to that. My kind of role or my way of getting into transportation, I think, is kind of unique. I started as a teacher for 10 or 12 years at the high school levels, became an assistant principal, and then had an opportunity to get into transportation on the operations side of a school district, totally different. But I jumped right in, got my CDL, was able to do the other things to become a school bus driver, and I've really loved it ever since then. And I've been working very closely with Transfinder and a lot of different elements since I got here in Hilton. And I'll be able to share some more of that as we continue through the webinar.
Thanks so much, Matthew. Really appreciate it. Randy, tell us a little bit about you and your district.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randy Williams. I'm Director of Transportation at the Wilson School District near Reading, Pennsylvania, so northeastern PA. We are about a 6,500 student school district, of which we transport between 4,400 and 4,600 students, over about 76 vehicles. And we also have the luxury of doing crossing guards as part of transportation. So that is an interesting wrinkle, but we're pretty much a rural district, although we do go down into the city of Reading quite often. McKinney-Vento is a big part of our transportation here, as well as probably everybody on this call. But we're kind of a pocket community. We are a school district that people want to come to, and so our population is projected to grow quite heavily. prior to utilizing fully Transfinder, we had Routefinder Pro, but still doing a lot of things manually. So we are almost fully integrated with all the Transfinder suite at this point. And again, we'll cover that as we go through the call a little bit more. But it's interesting how 32 years ago I started in passenger transportation, and I can remember the days of having big maps on my wall and using push pins and yarn. And that was the way we did it, back in 99. Who would have thought that we would have this kind of technology? And here we are. So that's a little bit about my district and my evolution.
Yeah, thanks so much. We actually, one of our clients years and years and years ago, like over a decade ago, did a really fun video of them with a map and a push pin. And I'll put it in Facebook if anybody wants to see it. I post it every once in a while if you want a good laugh. But it's quite, you definitely talk about evolution. It definitely, you've come a long way. I think Heather is with us now from Anchorage. I know you had a little bit of a power outage. So one thing that you guys, I don't need to preach to the choir here, you guys always know how to figure it out. You have things come up, drivers call in sick, and you had your perfect plan laid out, and then you walked in the door, right? I think I got some heads nodding on that one. So so we just have to make do and figure it out, right? So Heather, thanks so much for joining us, and tell us a little bit about your career as well as Anchorage.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the webinar. So I came up to Anchorage back in the late 90s. I became a driver here at the Anchorage School District. I worked my way up through safety and dispatch and supervisor. 5 years ago, I applied and received the position as the Director of Transportation here for Anchorage. And lo and behold, that was exactly 5 years ago, because we had a 7.1 earthquake, and that was my first basic day on the job.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so that was today, 5 years. Yeah, and now today we have a fire outside which caused our power outage, so it's all in game.
But you're
here
okay.
We have about.
You're not doing a webinar with like your car on fire or anything, right?
No, no, it was a transformer.
All right, just a transformer.
Yeah, just a transformer. So 5 years ago, I started talking with Transfinder because I knew that we needed to make a change here at the district. We have about 45,000 students, and we bus about 24,000 of those students. We have approximately 3,000 to 3,500 special ed students that we put on special ed busing, which is door-to-door service mostly. So we do all that with 212 routes. Wow. We are a 1/3, 2/3 district here, which means 1/3 is under the umbrella of the Anchorage School District in-house transportation. 2/3 of that transportation we contract out, which is currently MV reliant. My position, I umbrella both ASD and Reliant, so both of them are my bucket.
Wow.
We want to be able to share what the information we have with our contractor, which has always been difficult in the past. But with the new Transfinders Plus, it is a web-based, so that makes it so much easier for us. And we have just recently this summer moved into Transfinder, so we are just starting our process. We do have the purchase of every one of their different segments except for the maintenance app at this point. We're going slow, so we're moving forward. Our next piece is to get the Wayfinder and the tablets in place, and that's very exciting for us. So up here, we just, we're kind of our own people, and we take a lot of phone calls and a lot of complaints, and it'll be nice to have parent app as well. That's
great. Yeah, we talked at length. I'm working on a story on Heather and her district, and the one thing that stands out to me was something about starting the buses early, and I think you said, like, you can't pick up students until the buses hit 45 degrees or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's state statute. 45 degrees. Yeah, so we come in I come in every morning by 5 a.m. and I usually work until the day is done, sometimes 5, 6 p.m. We have a crew that will come in and start the buses when we are low temperatures, about 10 degrees or lower. We can get up to a negative 20 here. And they will start the buses and we will let them idle on a high idle so that we can go and our drivers will go out at least at the 45 required degrees.
Wow, 45 degrees. I'm in New York, but 45 degrees is still chilly to be on a bus. But you guys are hardy people. All right, so I want to go around the room a little bit and talk about an average day. And I think, Heather just touched on it a little bit, getting in at 5, staying till the day is done. That's a 12. I mean, I did the math on that. I'm not great at math, but 12-hour days there. Can you guys give me a sense, any of you, Heather as well, what does a typical day or a typical week look like in terms of, Matthew, you mentioned driving a bus. I don't think, Heather, your district is way too big for you to be driving a bus, I'm assuming at this point. Am I correct?
That is correct. If I have to do something, it's usually in the office dispatching, and which I've done often. But we are healthy right now with drivers.
Great. So give me a sense. Anybody go ahead and jump in and just to kind of set the table for why we have evolved as a company to that one partner, one solution approach because of, I think, what we're going to talk about here. Tell me a little bit about what an average day is, average week is for you, multiple interactions you're dealing with. Randy, you want to kick it off?
Sure. So like Heather, not quite like Heather, I'm not in at 5, but 6 o'clock in the morning till about 5 o'clock in the evening. I do have a dispatcher as well as a transportation supervisor that also work with me. But the day starts obviously with the driver aid crossing guard call-offs. You walk in the office at 6 a.m. and you see your message light blink, that's somebody calling. So then you're working on coverage, how you're going to cover that. And then, the parent calls start coming with, we're very fortunate and maybe everybody else is too, but a lot of our parents of special needs students will call us and say, hey, my child is not riding today. So we can let the bus driver know, hey, that you don't have to go by that stop. And so that kind of fills from about 6 a.m. till about 7:15. By that time, most of our runs are out. At that point, dealing with, building administration, depending on what's happening. Did we have a situation? I may be conferring with the superintendent. During the midday there, it's routing the new students and, the alerts in Viewfinder Plus, having that alert set up so that I don't have to go in and manually check each day. I can see, hey, I have some new students, a changed address, a brand new student, an update, whatever the case may be. It makes it a lot easier. And then probably about 1:15, our employees start to come back. They don't have to go out till 2, but they love to come in and just sit and chat, which is great. I think the family atmosphere that we have created here is phenomenal. And then the afternoon is dealing with a lot of driver calls. We have a policy here in Wilson that kindergarten and first graders have to be left off with a parent or guardian. And while we are an affluent community, it's amazing how many parents forget that they have to go pick up their child. But it's the number of phone calls in the afternoon have decreased exponentially because of the use of the Stopfinder parent app. We are at about a 71 to 72% parent usage, so we're on the higher side. We're almost at that 80%, Zach. But our parents rely on it. And in the beginning of the school year, when they couldn't see on the app, there was a glitch. Oh boy, that increased the calls. So it's a double-edged sword. If they embrace it and it doesn't work, they're going to call. But it has reduced the number of phone calls we have to field because we put in the bus is running late 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. The bus has been involved in a minor collision. A major collision, we'll do a call, a physical call. But a sub bus so they can follow it on the Stopfinder app. So, and then after that, buses are back about 4:15, and it's just, again, dealing with, drivers with PM stuff. So
That's
that's my typical day.
Yeah, that's good. Anybody want to add anything to that? We don't need to go around the room, but anybody have any other pieces there?
I'll just add, I mean, I think, my day is very similar to kind of what Randy described in terms of the AM and the PM. I'm in an office with 4 or 5 other people, and we kind of share duties in terms of dispatch, routing, those types of things. But yeah, I do have to drive sometimes. If I drive, I'm the last one out. So that means that we have people from district office that'll come over to at least answer phones in our office and take messages and things. And, many districts that I'm near up in New York State have had driver shortages of 10, 15, even 20%. And that's difficult for sure. But things like Routefinder Plus help with that in a number of different ways, and we can speak to that for sure on this webinar. But there's a lot of different tools that will help make runs more efficient, maybe eliminate a run, decrease the time that kids are on the bus, all of those different pieces. And another really good thing that we've been able to do, because some of us have to drive, is use Viewfinder. And it's kind of a simple tool, but it's an awesome tool for schools to be able to access current, in the moment, up-to-date bus assignments for students. So they don't really have to call us if there's a bus change or they have some sort of concern. They can just access on Viewfinder and find exactly what they need to find.
Yeah, you're hitting a nerve there, Matthew, because we're really making a big push in Viewfinder right now, because it's one that we really don't really talk that much about. And it's super useful. It came up in a webinar a couple of weeks ago where, at the building level, every building should have it, really, because you're not going to have no one's going to mess up what your routers have done. It's a read only, but it has all that information on your fingertips. It's also mobile friendly, so you can have it anywhere. So,
Rick?
Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
Talk about Viewfinder a little bit too. It is a great app. Something I've just kind of discovered with Viewfinder is the dashboards. And I want to get with the team to figure out how to customize some of those dashboards. But the dashboard functionality and being able to use it on an iPad remotely while traveling or whatever, that's huge. And so that was a godsend for me, because I'm visual. I need to see. The other piece with Viewfinder, in the beginning of the school year, the first 2 weeks of the school year, before school starts, 2 weeks before, I bring in 5 people to answer phones so that me and my staff can work on routing. And they're all set up with Viewfinder for that time. So when they want to know, a parent wants to know the student schedule, they're going right into it. So our schools all use it, and we use it in that fashion as well.
Great. I got a question here. I'm going to just throw it out there. And then, Pete, if you want to add anything about the day of the life, great. If not, we'll get right into the tools, and Heather as well. But a typical day for us, this gentleman includes athletic and field trips. Wants to know how Transfinder helps with taking requests for and scheduling trips. I know we have Tripfinder. I don't know if any of you want to address it, or if Zach, you want to take a stab at it as well. But no, Zach would not be taking a stab at it. He's a resident expert at it as well. Anybody want to address that?
I can tell you, we have every module that Transfinder offers, and Tripfinder is one of them. And we used to use a custom built program prior to that, and it worked. It was fine, but getting the users. So our users are our school secretaries. They go in and they enter the trips on behalf of whatever teacher wants it. And then it gets escalated through the back end. It's seamless, but it gets escalated to the principal, who then approves it based on, is it within budget? Then it comes to us, and we make sure that we can service it depending on the times and the day. So it really is a very functional, and I'm not a paid spokesperson, so everybody knows, but it is a super functional program that is in the family, the Transfinder family. It's called Tripfinder. It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think Heather may be the only other Tripfinder user here, but like Randy said, definitely, again, bringing it all in house, right? People dealing with those field trips, having a tool that, as you approve them, multi-level approval comes right into your routing platform, so you can see that right along your regular trips there too. Rick, go ahead.
No, thank you. That's great. Pete, I'm going to let's get into the technology. Let's get into, what you have in-house, or maybe where you're going as well. Pete, I looked everybody up just to kind of make sure I knew where you were all at. Pete, you got Plus, Service Finder, you are hosted, Infofinder, Viewfinder, Wayfinder. How does the technology work for you? Give us a sense of that, the seamless kind of interactions between those, how it has helped you to do your job really and run that operation. I think you're muted. Am I right?
It's nice because all of our office staff use it and we're well trained on it. We've been using Finder Plus for a few years now, and it's nice that it's hosted, so I don't have to worry about our technology department if the server's down. As long as I got internet, I can use it. And so that's really the nice part about that. The way it all works together and how on the back end it's a spreadsheet. The way so it's so customizable. Any screen layout I want, any report I want, anything I can easily make and create. I do that quite a bit, and it's really makes things work a lot easier for everybody.
Has Viewfinder, you have Viewfinder as well, correct?
Yes.
So has that helped you in terms of reducing? One of the things we hear about is just number one, it reduces phone calls because that information is easily accessible at the building level.
Now, we have not done that yet. I shared it with a couple staff members, and if they don't use something a lot, they forget how to use it. And so we use PowerSchool in our district. So actually through Finder Plus, one of our exports the routing data. Of course, it's overnight, but they can go into the student information and see what their bus route is there too, if that's what they use all the time. Great.
And how about Wayfinder? How's that working for you?
We're just testing it right now, so it's so far it's good. It's really good.
Excellent. All right, who else wants to jump in on this? Heather, we haven't forgotten about you as well. I see you have Stopfinder, Geo Alerts. You got Plus as well, Viewfinder, Tripfinder. How does that all work together? You got a massive district. I know you were you were super patient with your school board. Like you said, you were looking at this 4+ years ago, and you just kept diligently bringing it before them until they finally said, okay, run with it. Tell me, was it worth the wait?
It was well worth the wait. Just moving from a server base to a web base has been just phenomenal for us. Our team can be out on the road and be able to look things up out on the road. Our contractor is able to look up what they need to look up. We also use PowerSchool, so our parents utilize a download from Transfinder and PowerSchool and go to a parent queue where they can look at their stops and their times and things like that right now. We are excited to bring on more of the modules. We have the activity module that we're going to do. We have a very antiquated activities program, which is not friendly for users. So it'll be nice to have something that's much more friendly for users. We track all our buses through Transfinder. It's great. It works well with our Zonar GPS so that we can follow a bus as it moves along during the route. It's just been a nice transition, a new transition for us, but the team at Transfinder have been fabulous. They have been responsive. We have a different time zone by all means, and the team will answer us at our 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. without argument, or they just have been great.
That's awesome. It's great to hear. And Stopfinder, you have Geo Alerts, so you're pretty early on the cusp with that. Parents like it?
We have not given it to the parents yet. We're going to do a slow rollout because we are a large district. So those will happen as far as we're going to pick and pilot a few schools, and then we'll move further out. When you're dealing with 45,000 kids, it's hard to roll out something brand new for all 45,000.
Absolutely.
Well, I know one thing Heather has really been testing due to where she's at in Anchorage there is something that I've heard a lot of concerns about, is using the tablets out on the road and losing cell connectivity and things like that. So a lot of testing that I see that you guys have been doing up there. I'm curious to hear kind of the results or what you're seeing or how the tablets are kind of working as you go in and out of areas with coverage.
So we have tested it from the very ends of our route or of our district. So we have about 2,000 square miles that we cover here at the Anchorage School District. We have tested it multiple times with the RFID as well, and we have no issues whatsoever with connectivity. It's been a great test, and we are going to now start pulling forward to installation and getting that part going.
Awesome.
Great. So Matt, I know you're chomping at the bit. So you mentioned you also are unique because you guys actually use Transfinder hardware as well. So that's part of that was really the big push where all of a sudden now we really truly are one partner, one solution. We won an award as best software. Winning that award for best hardware was, more than just a feather in our cap. Tell us a little bit about, now you don't have to just stick with hardware, but you have Servicefinder, you're being hosted, of course, plus Wayfinder, Viewfinder. Tell us, how's it all working together for you?
Of course, yeah. So for us, I think, Viewfinder, like you mentioned, is not one that people really talk about too much, but we rolled that out about a year and a half ago to our 5 buildings. We did little training sessions for each of the main offices, and another lead router sat with, school district secretaries, administrative assistants, or administrators, and we're able to walk them through it, how easy it is to use, how intuitive it is. So I think that's a huge positive in terms of the Viewfinder. And I saw a question down here, the Viewfinder versus Routefinder Plus. So Routefinder Plus is houses all of your routes. Viewfinder will show in read only, so those people cannot edit anything, just the stop information for each student, and they can search by bus. They can see every kid that's on, bus 100 in the PM for a particular school. So there's a lot of cool features in there that you can go through with kids or with offices too. So after that, we wanted to go a little bit further. We started to venture into Wayfinder. We had an awesome trainer from Transfinder. His name was Shay. He was very good with us. And the way that we use it, and I know everybody uses it differently, we have 8 or 10 tablets, and we purchased those tablets through Transfinder. I think they're Active 3 rugged Samsung tablets, and they're great. So I think what we do is we have 8 or 10 tablets that are in our office here, and we can either assign a name to those tablets, and then the routes that driver is assigned to pop up automatically. Or in the case of my situation, I can grab a tablet and say, hey, I got to go drive bus 10 this afternoon. I'm not super familiar with it. So I'm going to load up bus 10 and I'm going to do my turn-by-turn navigation and directions. And it is phenomenal. With anything new, it does take some time to get used to. The biggest thing that we learned is that the routes in Routefinder Plus need to be 100% accurate so that the directions then match what your routing looks like. So we've learned a lot through that, but the best way to do it is just to jump in and to get started on it. And then the last piece for us is Servicefinder. So all of our preventative maintenance, all of our different warranty work that gets done, all of our fueling that takes place, all of our mileage records, all of that is funneled through Servicefinder, which allows us to do a lot of unique things and print a lot of different reports that I can give to my supervisor or the Board of Ed. So it's definitely a complete package. It's nice to have one point person or one group that we can always talk with about how does this work with Routefinder Plus. If I want to do this in Servicefinder, how can I do this? Or what's the impact with all of the buses that might be in Routefinder Plus, for example. Excuse me. So across the board, I've been really happy, and I know a lot of people have been really happy in our district around us continuing to move forward. And then the last step is Stopfinder. So right now, we do not export our routing information into Infinite Campus. That's what we use here. That's our student management system. We import everything in, so all the information comes into Routefinder Plus. So Stopfinder would certainly help us with decreasing calls when, you know, a bus gets close enough to a stop, or, hey, there's a 5-minute ETA to your bus stop. Let's get the kids at the door outside and be ready. As well as pushing out all of that information as like bus passes or bus assignments prior to the school year. And Randy, super impressive. You're at 71, 72%. You must really make that an initiative to really push that out, because that's a pretty high usability feature for that, from what I gather.
Yeah, it was a challenge, Matthew. You know, it wasn't that way for the first year and a half, but we finally basically put it out in many, and the biggest part of it is communication. You know, email, website, social media, phone calls. Hey, parents, this is how you're getting your child's bus information. And oh, by the way, set it up with push notifications. It'll be like using your messenger app. You'll see a little icon there, so you're going to know. Probably, and I wanted to talk also about something else, but in Stopfinder, you know how, and many of you that are viewing this, and even the panelists, you have an early dismissal day. So the phones ring off the hook. What time will the bus come? Well, how early is school getting out? Well, 2 hours early. Okay, subtract 2 hours, but they don't think it. We put that into Stopfinder. And so when they pull that app open for that specific day, it shows the adjusted drop-off time. And that's early dismissal, late start, school canceled, whatever the case may be. So it is pretty great. I'm glad we're at that higher percentage, but it is a lot of work to get the parents to accept and embrace it. And we're going to see how that works when we roll out Wayfinder, because we are giving badges to every student in our one elementary school, because they're going to use the badge for food service, but they're also going to use it to swipe on and off the bus. So we'll see what the parent resistance or acceptance is of that. But the one thing Matthew was talking about too was grabbing one of those tablets. And we don't have Wayfinder yet, but I've been doing a lot of research. Route Builder is something that I'm very excited about. Route Builder is basically being able to use your cell phone or one of the tablets. You can use either, from what I'm told, and go out and actually have the drivers run the routes and build the route. Because you know how any routing system, the directions that come out are pretty good. But I saw one comment, if the speeds aren't set right and the directions aren't exact, it's a headache getting info to parents. Using that Route Builder, when I go out to cover a run that I'm not familiar with, I'm not looking at my GPS to see where they really turn. I can just take that tablet and I have that route built off actual versus what the system's producing.
Very good. I know, Matt, you mentioned in the past too, every time you've used Wayfinder, you've may come back to the office and made alterations to the routes. So it's actually, one more tool actually to even become even more efficient.
Yeah, 100%. And we've actually, like Randy mentioned, we've actually done the real route builder. We've tested it. So we've kind of said, hey, this is our starting point. Here's our end school. And we just go out and do the route. We've done it in like a district minivan or something like that to see how it would work. And it is really good. It is accurate. You just come back and upload it back to Viewfinder Plus, and then you can tweak things and make things changed like locally for what you know about your district. But it works really well, and we have started to test that a little bit.
We got to get to a poll. I can't believe we're already 45 minutes in. I thought I had the poll at the 15-minute mark, but it's been a little crazy fast. How fat you guys are, just info packed. I want to quote William, who said something nice about Viewfinder, who says it's nice that you can customize how much or how little the end user is allowed to see and is adjustable by the user. So that's interesting. There's also, we haven't even gotten into reports that you can set when you want them, what you want, where you want it sent to, et cetera. Matthew, before I go to the poll, though, can you tell us a little bit about the hardware side of things, too? Because you guys are pioneers in that area.
Yeah, sure. Do you mean like our tablets that we purchased and things?
Exactly. Yep. How you've utilized. Yep.
Yep. So we connected with Transfinder probably a year ago now and wanted to, go down the Wayfinder road, which I talked about. And rather than going out on our own and trying to find something, we worked with you guys to purchase a certain number of tablets. They came to us actually with the Wayfinder app loaded, specifically for us and for our district. And like I said, I think they're They're the Samsung Active 3 rugged tablets. They come with a really good durable case. They come with mounts. You can even get cup holder mounts. So if your buses have cup holders, you can take them from one bus to the next really easily. They can be powered right through your bus. We personally don't do that. We power hours overnight in the office. But when we received those tablets, they were kind of ready to go. We logged in with our initial login information. All we had to do was change a few settings, update our map stuff so that the Wayfinder maps would be the same as our Routefinder Plus maps, and then off we went. I mean, it was, yes, there's some trial and error, but working through Transfinder to have those tablets come to us with everything loaded and ready to go was awesome. It was very, there's not a lot of work on our side to really be able to put those in drivers' hands and start to test them out on the road.
Great. Super. Thank you. Joshua made a question earlier. I wanted to just address, I know it was already answered, but he asked about, like student conduct. Is that included in Plus? Those separate add-ons. So we have Form Finder, which is embedded in Plus, as well as a bunch of other solutions that we have as well, and which is a customizable form. You can digitize any form you have in your office. You can also create any form that you say, I really wish we had a form for this, but you can create it. You can create polls with it. And then it's capturing all that information and you're keeping it all within, your Plus environment. So that's a really good question, Joshua. Okay, Manny with School Bus Fleet, I'm asking if you could launch our poll question. We really want to get a sense of our attendees and their experience with vendors. And just what their experience is in terms of how many software and hardware vendors do you utilize to perform your transportation tasks? Now that's not including those ancillary products like or buying a bus, that's not ancillary, or getting air filters and that kind of thing. But literally just the hardware and the software you need to perform transportation. So Manny, can you give us a sense of what the results are? We got a little bit of time here right before we get the results.
Sure, we'll give him just a few more seconds. So go ahead and submit that answer.
Okay,
you have a few options.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Thank you. So why don't I ask Heather, prior to working with Transfinder, how many different vendors would you say you were working with at your district?
We had 4 different vendors that we worked with. And we were, like I said, pretty antiquated at the time. So moving into the future with web-based and all the other modules, it's going to be nice to have one person or one company to work with for sure.
Great. Anybody else want to jump in and give their sense? Randy, how about you?
So, we actually only used 2 different vendors, but when I got here, I'm in my 6th year now here. They did so much stuff manually with paper, and that drives me nuts. So only 2 vendors. It was Transfinder for Routefinder Pro, and then we used a company called Where's the Bus for Paranet. But no, this is great. It bringing everything into the under one roof, I think is the term that we've kind of coined.
Yep.
Has been wonderful. And tech support. So when you have a problem, I had a problem, a parent couldn't see their Stopfinder information, and within 12 hours, I had a tech on the phone with me telling me what the issue was. So you worry about putting all your eggs in one basket. How's it going to be? But I'm here to tell you it's been a very good experience.
That's great. How about you, Matthew? How many vendors were you guys using?
Sure. So if I think about it, we had Routefinder Pro, which is great in its own right, but it's really not Routefinder Plus for sure. We've been an early adopter, I believe, of Servicefinder, so we were using that in different capacities for quite a while, but we did not have any like Stopfinder. We had no parent app, nothing like that, no Wayfinder. Our GPS that we had was a different vendor. Without saying the name, it didn't work well. It wasn't something that we really were happy with. And there was no Viewfinder, so it was a struggle. Schools were kind of in the dark, for lack of a better term, in terms of what routes students were on. And we, kind of like Randy, we literally had to send massive Excel files over to them via email or print off by school bus at each school, here are the kids that are on these buses. And of course, that changes a lot. So Viewfinder has been a huge lift for us as well. So I would just reiterate and echo what other people have said. You know, the more you can use, the more technology you can use, the better schools are going to be able to partner with you, and as well as parents. Sure.
Great. Pete, anything you want to add?
We used to send out postcards for like route information in the fall. So it's, it's toward the end of August, you get all these postcards printed out and you mail them out. And then as you mail them out, you got to reprint more because there's changes. Well, a few years ago, we sent out postcards. I gave him the guy, he took them, he says, yeah, I'll mail them out for you. Bulk mailing. Apparently he had a problem at the post office. Something was formatted wrong. I said, hey, our people aren't getting their postcards. What's going on? He says, actually, they're in my trunk. And this was like a week later. And so that was the end of that. And now we use Infofinder I as a method to get route information out. And now I don't use that as much because we have a lot of buses go in the same area. So people get confused with which bus they're on. And so a lot of it's sent back into Power School. And then I use Messenger. So I'm using too many things to do one thing. And I know that when we get on board with Stopfinder, that's going to solve all of that. It'll make it, and dealing with the different parent app that we have. So a student enrolls, they got to wait overnight. They come through Power School, and then I make a change, and then overnight it updates with the other parent app. So there's a 2-day delay to everything.
Yes.
So with all in one environment, you don't have to stand in the middle of the road waiting for the one on the left to do what the one on the right needs to see, kind of thing. So
perfect. That's an excellent point, Pete. Thank you. Manny, you got the results.
Go ahead,
Hello,
Heather.
Manny? Yeah. Oh, Heather, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just going to add with the parent app, we pushed forward with purchasing the parent app because 90% of our emails that we receive from parents make comments of, I can see my food coming to my house or my groceries coming to my house. Why can't I see my kid coming to my house?
Yes.
So I don't know who else is getting those kind of pushes from parents, but it's the truth. You should be able to see your student on a bus.
Great.
I think
That is a great point.
I think it's. Go ahead.
For the survey results, it looks like most people are saying 3 vendors, and then we got a tie. Actually, no. And then in second place, we have 4. So 3 to 4 seems to be the average. Yeah, go ahead.
I saw a question. How many finders are there? And I have to snicker because
It's a fair question. It's a lot.
Every time when I figure out the next finder, I turn around tomorrow and there's a new finder. So, that was a great question.
Yeah.
Very funny.
Somebody said something I want to make sure I highlight here was on Wayfinder. Did you answer that question? It was.
Yeah, Ron from Tees Valley had a great comment about Wayfinder for sure.
Yeah, it's a great tool. You need to sit with the drivers to make sure the stops are accurate. Also, the settings are important to the number of meters when the student transportation appears, but basically a great app. So it's good to hear. Thank you so much, Ron, for sharing that. So we're getting close to the end here, and I guess I want if you guys could share one takeaway that people. I always talk about how people who are watching this are either going to go back to their office and share, here's what I just heard. They might go to their school board. They might go to their superintendent. So what's one key thing that you want to make sure that is intimated here to those that are attending? I'm going to start with Heather, and then we'll go to Randy, Pete, and then Matthew. And then Jack and I will close us out. Heather, what's one takeaway?
So with all the struggles that I had to get this started, my takeaway is it's well worth the fight, and just know the points that you need to make so that you can convince your school board and your upper management that this is the best way to go for you.
Great. Thank you. Pete. I think you're muted again.
There we go. do your research. And I believe Transfinder, once I found Transfinder several years ago, it's been a great product to work with. Anytime you have tech support questions, they're more than happy to help out quickly. Usually I just email them and I get answers quickly. And I'm probably one of the ones that has a lot of requests of the strangest things, and usually they work with us. But I just be your own advocate. If you see something that you think is going to work and help, ultimately the customer as a student get home safely, and the parent can see all that, that's going to make a big difference.
That's great. And you're also a very tech savvy person.
Yes.
So great. Well, thank you so much. How about you, Matthew?
Sure. I think my big takeaway is all of the tools that we're discussing are great ways to share information, to communicate with schools and parents and others, not keep anybody in the dark. But you also have a lot of control over how much you share and how much ability you give others to use that information. And I'll just touch upon one little thing if I can, Rick. So
Yes,
the one
please.
commenter down there was around the Wayfinder. And certainly you can get in and you can manipulate or change settings. So, if you want your bus driver to see the next stop 200 yards away, you do that on all your tablets. And then you can see a school from 500 yards. Like, it is very customizable to suit your needs. And I think that's, for me, the biggest takeaway.
That's great. That's great. How about you, Randy?
My takeaway and a half. Number one, probably the biggest one, is be committed to the process. If you go to your school board or your administration and say, this is what I want to do, and you don't stay committed to it and follow it through, it will look like it's been a failure, when really it's just a matter of keeping your employees committed, keeping your parents committed. It's just a communication to make that commitment happen is probably my biggest takeaway. Then my half a takeaway is, don't be afraid of technology. A lot of people shy away from things because, oh my God, you got Transfinder, but then you got Roundfinder Plus, Viewfinder, Wayfinder, Service Finder, Stopfinder, Infofinder. Oh my God. And so, how do you catch an elephant, or whatever that term is, one bite at a time? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Do it one bite at a time, but stay committed.
That's great. Two things I want to highlight. I got some good comments here. Diane just said, does Transfinder have any plans for a student management system? She mentioned a client that they use. We found that these systems are not coming from a bus transportation perspective, but we are expected to use it. In order for us to use it, we have to create workarounds. Diane, I'm just going to say stay tuned. That's one of Tony's favorite expressions, stay tuned. So we'll just leave it at that. William said something that made me trigger something. I want to go back to you, Randy. It's going to be very quick because we're running low. But you being 70% along with Stopfinder, one sentence, how did you get the engagement so high? What are you doing? You touched on it, but can you give me a specific? Communication to the parents. This is the way that you get your student information. We had one TD say that they said, if you either use Stopfinder to get it or you're not going to get it. All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you. Heather, I want to thank you so much for your expertise, sharing your time. I know you're extremely busy. I want to thank all of our attendees. Zach, you have a closing comment, and then we're going to have Wes close us out.
No, definitely. The panel was amazing. I know a lot of people here that have implemented technology successfully. I'm sure a lot of people watching hoping to emulate. Randy, I think you're going to get a call from Bethlehem School District asking how you did it with adoption there. But really, it really is about having a partnership with the school district being invested, your vendor being there to support you, the technology working the way you need it to. That's my big last thought.
That's great. Thanks so much, Zach. Again, it is more than a slogan. One partner, one solution. You see the email there, getplus@transfinder.com if you want to start a conversation with us. Wes, close us out.
Sure thing. So that's all the time we've got today. I think it was a real informative discussion. Great to hear from all the districts. And if you asked a question and the panel didn't get to answer it, they'll try to follow up with that via email. I hope you enjoyed the webinar as much as I did. I want to thank Rick and Zach and the team at Transfinder for making it possible. And Pete, Matthew, Randy, and Heather, great panel. And I also want to mention that the webinar is going to be available on demand on our School Bus Fleet website at schoolbusfleet.com/webinars. It'll be up as soon as possible. But thanks again, take care, and drive safely.
Have a great day, everyone.